Hey guys, welcome to a really special video on the Aquamate channel. This one, we're taking a little bit of a step back. About 2 years ago, we did a series which was all a big aquascaping workshop with a life aquascape artist in Boaz Wong, who looks after the channel with a few bits and pieces here and there and runs the Studio H2O in Mitcham, a fantastic aquarium. I went to Boaz and I asked him, can you help me go from an empty glass box through the whole process of putting together a natural aquascape. It was a 5-part series and each video went for about 10 minutes or so. And I thought, it's been 2 years since we did that. And I kind of like sitting down watching some of our famous aquascapers on YouTube with a cup of coffee or a glass of cold Coke or whatever, and just sort of take it in or do some chores around the house while I'm just watching in the background. So I thought I'm gonna put the whole thing together, and this 50-odd minute video will teach you exactly what you need to know about the basics of aquascaping and how to put a pretty cool little scape together. So sit back, enjoy, and as I said, grab your favorite beverage, and this one is a real treat. Welcome to another episode of Aquamate. I'm really pleased to be sitting here with Boaz. We are going to learn some aquascaping tips. I've been wanting to do this for ages. Boaz is amazing at it. We're sitting here in front of lights that I dream about buying one day. So, without wasting any time, this is going to be a series that will release a video every week, and hopefully you guys can join along and inspire you to make your own aquascape at home and learn some tips from the master.
No master yet, not yet.
Alright, so where should we start? What's the first thing you think about when you go, alright, I'm going to set up a scape, this is what I want to do first?
Of course, the budget.
Yes.
So, a lot of people when they start look at like online pictures and like other people's scapes, they look at, oh, I want something like that in my house or in my room.
Yes.
100%.
Guilty.
Yeah. But they've never like done this before. They don't know. Oh, actually, the lights cost a fortune. Plants need CO2. Soil and plants cost a fortune as well.
Yes.
A lot of people just think about the tank. They'll say like you plan it for the actual budget and how much you want to spend and what's the end result you want.
Yeah.
When it comes to plants in the aquarium, there's always comes into two lines. That there's like the low tech tank and there's the high tech tank.
Yeah.
Which low tech tank doesn't use CO2. The high tech tank uses CO2.
Yes.
Then it comes. Second thing, it comes like aqua soil as well. Some people would love to use like just like garden soil plus sand, more like the traditional plus clay. Some likes to use like the 80 acre soil or a few other brands of aqua soil. Then that's one thing you can do as well.
Yeah.
And after that, you pick rocks, woods, and all the other stuff that you want to put in the scape. You can even put like Star Wars figures in there. So
the force is strong in this way.
it's just like all of it up. But yeah. So you need to think beforehand that what you want to do, and then you just slowly plan out and find the stuff piece by piece, and you want to put in. But yeah.
No, that's perfect. So what are we going to do here today? We've got the amazing 88 light, which I dreamed of owning one day. So we've got a really good start as far as lighting. What size is the tank? We have a
We have a Aqua ultra wide glass tank, which is 45 centimeters by, from memory, 20 8.
Yeah, so that's about 50 litre tank?
I reckon around 40 something.
40 litre, yep. So it's a good size. It's an easy one to sneak into your fish room without anyone noticing. But I think it's a really good size because it's sort of nano, which a lot of people like their nano tanks, and a lot of people like their larger tanks. I think this is a good size because it's going to give us a bit of room to, well, yeah, sort of create depth and have a few options with what we want to do. Yeah. So we're using what wood today?
We're actually using Malaysian driftwood.
Yep.
Which is one of the cheapest driftwood that we can find in the market. Most of them are natural driftwoods, so they will sink to your tank straight away and they won't throw out much tannins. Of course, some varies.
Yes.
It's easier to work with if you're only a beginner.
That's a cool piece there, that one.
Yeah. So we're trying to create like a broken log theme, and we're gonna. And unfortunately, I can't afford like to buy a broken log. Now I'm trying to just like paste them up using glue and using other pieces of Malaysian driftwoods.
So you're going to use glue. What sort of glue do we use in an aquarium?
Cool. There's few types of glues that you can use in an aquarium, which is like your normal like $2 shop cheap.
Yep.
Super glues, and the other type is just like aquarium super glue for corals or like for your epiphytes like anubias and ferns.
Oh, perfect. So we're going to glue some of this wood together.
And
Uh-oh. This is why the toilet roll shortage was happening.
Yeah, everybody's like hiding at hardscaping.
What brand? What brand is that? Does it matter what brand we...
Nah, just the cheapest one will do. The cheapest one will do.
No, that's cool.
Yeah. So, gluing wood. A lot of people constantly ask me how to glue wood or like bond woods together.
Yep.
Actually, the secret is like toilet paper rolls.
Okay.
Yep. So what you do, you just like you grab your like super cheap like super glue. You piece the wood that you want, the shape you want, and you shove that toilet paper in, and you glue on top. And then after it sets like a concrete and bonds the wood together. And it's the cheapest way to do it.
Okay.
Safe.
That's a cool idea. I would never have thought of that. Alright, so we're using 5 pieces here. This is easily the largest and thickest. And then I'm assuming having some lighter or thinner pieces of wood make it a little bit easier to glue on. So this is sort of our mainstay piece.
So you see our pieces of driftwood together?
Yep.
So you just like mainly just stacking the driftwood up and trying to create some depth.
Okay.
Just like that. That's pretty much what it's going to look in the tank. Like
That's
a broken log. So let's start gluing.
Hey.
Yep. So we find for the connection points between each wood, and we just like shove toilet paper in there and just glue it.
Alrighty. Show us that when you do the when you do it, because I think I understand what you mean. So do you wet the wood? I mean, sorry, wet the toilet paper?
No, you just roll it into like a tiny strip or a ball, and then you shove it in between. You can use filter floss as well. Of course, some people just don't like paper rolls.
Yep.
Normally I would just wear a glove, but not today. You need plenty of like the $2 glues, so I do recommend like just grab heaps of them.
Grab
$2 shop.
a bulk pack.
Yes. Last time I did something like that for just one piece, I used roughly around 4 packs of glue. You're literally pouring glue onto the wood.
Right, so there's that.
Literally pour.
A bit hard with lighting on that one, but that's alright. So you've just stuck it between the two and then glued.
And then glue. do it in an open area as well. It's super glue, mate. I don't want you to get addicted. Put a warning sign on, mate.
Alright, so we've glued these 3 pieces, but we're just going to sit these ones on when we stand it up, is that right?
Yep. Hopefully it's not look like
Whoop. Hang on a sec. Yeah, that looks very cool. I like it. Can't wait. Alright, so welcome back everybody. We are adding
soil.
There we go.
So,
so what soil is this?
This is 88 Amazonia, just normal Amazonia. We didn't use any salt additives because we're trying to keep this simple. Of course, if you want to use salt additives like the powders and stuff, 100% because they work.
Awesome. I need to look into those. So, when we're adding soil, how deep do you go? Is there any sort of rule that you use, or are you you've already got something in mind about how the scape's going to look, so you want to start shaping the soil to suit the scape?
Yeah, that's a good question, because like a lot of people they tend to either put like too less soil or too much soil. So normally I try to keep like the soil around at least 3 centimeters thick, so when you put plants in, the plants can grow roots properly and they can grab onto something. And try not to go too deep. If not, you'll have like gas pocket built up, and then if the gas pockets like get released in the fish tank, that will kill the fish.
So don't screw it up. Now, one thing that I have learnt about aqua soil is how long would you let a tank sit before you could add fish, because it's going to raise the ammonia in the water levels. What's the process behind that?
So normally what I do is just like according to ADA, or ADA said on their behind their bag, I just do 100% water changes for the first week or 2, just to make sure keep everything fresh.
Daily?
Not daily. I'll use too much time just doing water changes. I'll just do like every other couple of days. I'll just do 100% water change just to clean it, and at the same time I'll just test the ammonia level as well.
Yep.
Normally after a week-ish, with like maybe 3 times of 100% water change, the ammonia level should like lower a lot.
Okay.
And especially if you have other plants in there, just to use up ammonia, it will speed the cycle.
Cool.
A lot of people just use like the gravel flattener. I normally use my hand or like a credit card.
Yep. I kind of like it when it's not exactly perfectly flat, because it feels a bit more natural.
Yeah, but we can always change that later on. If you want to build up a slope that makes the scape look more like dynamic, you can always do that as well. So let's just put the wood in. That's the piece that we glued last time. Let's put the stuff in the front and see how it goes first.
Wow. Very cool.
Look in the front. I'll just adjust it a little bit. And you name it Dragonstone. Mine.
I was just asking Boaz about the names of the rocks. So we had to glue in this side. Oh, sorry, I think it's just around the other side. As it wasn't going to sit on its own. So we're using a rock to sort of also help prop it up to get the right angle.
Yep.
And then Boa started going off a tangent about rock names now.
Rock names, mate. They just like constantly rename rocks and push up something new in the market. At the end of the day, it's just the same rock, mate.
I love that. Like, I love that rock. You got all that texture on this side and then the smooth top. That one. Oh, it's very cool. All right, so tell me about this part. So we're talking about the aqua soil, and we have our hardscape in place. Why did you position it in the middle? So what's the thought process about where you think you should place your hardscape? I mean, obviously you can put it anywhere, but how do you get certain effects by placing it in certain areas?
So there's like obvious like few different ways of like planning your scapes, or like putting your hardscape where it is. There's a lot of people like put like sticky tape on the tank, trying to like find that perfect balance, like the grid on your camera.
Yep.
Some people even draw like the spiral, trying to find that golden ratio thing. For me, if it looks good, I reckon it looks good, then it's alright.
I definitely subscribe to that theory.
So
I think that looks really good.
yeah, I mean, I mean, you can get really technical with a lot of designing and arts and stuff, but I mean, at the end, you just want to enjoy it simply. Then you just like put it in. It looks good, cool. Let's put it there.
Absolutely.
Leave it there. Put plants in. Yep.
So what other tips do we need to think about when we're talking about substrate? Obviously, an aqua soil is going to be beneficial for plants. What do we do if we choose gravel or sand or anything else?
Cool. You can use sand and gravel to grow plants, or even to do an aquascape, but it's slightly harder because like there's less nutrients in the sand and gravel, and also it doesn't buffer. One of the main features of like most soil in the market is that they buffer. They lower the GH of the water, they lower the pH of the water, and provide the right condition and water parameters for plants to grow properly. You can still use sand and gravel, like most people do back in the days. I heard my uncle that owned the shop in Hong Kong for ages that they used to like acid wash like gravels in sand just to try to make sure it doesn't leach much into the water. If you can find an inert type of sand and gravel, that'd be great, because you're halfway to success. But still, you need to find root tabs or like other stuff to compensate the nutrients. Yeah.
No, that's perfect. So what is the next step? Once you're happy with your hardscape, you've got your soil in there, what do we start thinking about next?
I might actually add a few more pieces of rocks.
All right, cool.
Just to give a few more fine details, and we'll spray the soil down. Just with the rocks.
Done. So why are we spraying it down now?
So some people don't spray it. I mean, some scapers don't scape it. Don't spray it. But I like to spray it damp, so it's actually clumped down easier when I'm planting. Some scapers don't scape it. Don't spray it at all. Some scapers like to fill it to halfway, so it actually the plant stays in the soil better.
When they add the water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you spray it first, most of the time the soil will stay sinking. Sometimes people have used like Aqua soil will experience like soil floating up once they fill it, and if you spray it first, it just minimises the chances of that.
So what plants are we thinking for this scape?
So, like I said, we're trying to do something simple and easy.
Yep.
So, I'm thinking of something, an easy carpeting plant, and maybe one or two type of like background plants, and some epiphytes on the driftwood.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Let's go have a look at that. All right. So we have a little bit of a selection over here.
Yep.
So what are we pulling apart here?
So this is mini Java fern. Actually, it's like a dwarf version of normal Java fern. All the plants I choose here will grow without CO2. This is your infamous like Monte Carlo.
Yep.
This is Monte Carlo, and then you got like Cypress Hellfire, Cypress Hellfairy,
There we go. It's
which
a better
is
light. Yep.
a background plant that we're going to use,
Cool.
and a mini Java fern.
All right. So nice and simple. We've got our carpeting plant, background plant, and then this. I'm assuming you're going to.
Put them on the driftwood.
That's what I was thinking.
So we might use some moss as well, but let's try to put these on and see what the effect is first.
Yep,
And then
perfect.
if it's still too empty, we'll put some moss on.
Alrighty. So what we'll do is we will sort of position some of them out. We'll figure out where we like the location of them, and then we'll start planting.
What do you think?
It looks really good. So now these plants, they don't need to be in the soil to grow.
Yeah, they don't need to be in the soil. These are ferns. You can, they have a rhizome. If you put them in soil, they will kind of rot a little bit. So they don't do really well on soil. And normally we just like tie them on driftwoods or rocks and glue them as well.
Oh, they look really good.
So, just go to plants. Normally, for these like grassy looking ones, like a bunch of looking ones, if you can gently pour it off. Yeah, it's close to clean already, but I'll still clean it. Put it in like a bowl of clean water. You don't want that to get into your sink as well. And you just gently press on the roots, on the gel, crush them up.
Perfect.
Yep.
Now, what happens if you miss some?
It should be all right, but that's really Aussie to say, right? Because it's actually a lot of nutrients and other stuff, you don't want that to get in your tank. It just sometimes causes like algae bloom.
Okay.
Yep. A lot of people like find it really hard to clean like the Monte Carlo types or like the carpeting plant types.
Yeah.
They're afraid of actually crushing it or damaging it, but I'll say it's actually really hard to damage it unless you like step on it. So normally I just like tap it out. You see it's just literally full of gel and the roots are on top. Normally what I do is I just dip it in water and press. You see like all the gel just like slowly just turns into mush and just slowly get washed away by the water.
Well, there you go. I did do it correctly.
Yeah.
Now, the thing with the Monte Carlo, though, is now, do you break it up and plant multiple clumps all across the substrate, or do you just plant one big lot and let it grow?
You can actually do both. I mean, if you want a really well finished looking tank and on day one, you can pretty much like buy like 15 tubs and then you put it in a clump and it looks done in the first day. But normally what I do, because I'm a cheap ass, you have to beat that. I just like put them in the tiny clumps and I plant it in individually. Normally in a pattern of like a 4 on a dice or a 5 on a dice. Yeah.
4 on a dice or 5 on a dice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Didn't know that one. Makes sense.
Cool. So normally for something like this, depends how you want to split them into. I'll split them into like tiny bunches like these.
Yep.
So you can plant them in there nicely. Cool.
That's the one that I find is a bit trickier, is getting the gel off your more carpeting plants because they are so intertwined.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes like what I just did, even here you can see there's some gel.
Yep.
What you need to do is just like press it even more.
Yep.
Just gently tap it, and then even if like it's loose now, you just like put it back in a clump like that. Yeah. So when we're doing the planting, as I said, we have like at least roughly around 3 centimeters thick of soil.
Yep.
And the soil is actually really damp. Then we can start planting. So normally I just use a tweezer and I'll hold the bottom like that. And you just plant it in. You can plant it really deep. You don't want to plant it too shallow because when you put water in, it will just float up. And the second thing is like, it's always handy to have a spray bottle to spray the plant because it's really easy for like aquatic plants to dry.
Yeah.
Once they're dried, they're dead. So even for Monte Carlo, you can even plant it deeper. So it only like shows a tiny bit of like foliage. It will still come back. So if you plant too shallow, like sometimes I see my customers do, they plant it like this. They only put the roots in, hoping it will float up. Pretty much you have to keep replanting that back down. So don't worry about planting it too deep, or even like shoving it to like you can only see a tiny bit of grass. It will still come back. It will still grow.
Okay.
Just make sure it's anchored down.
So if I was doing a dry scape, for instance, and I was putting the Monte Carlo in, it's not going to matter so much if it's up high because it should start putting its roots out, and by the time you add water, it's not less likely to float off then.
Yeah, correct. Because mainly the dry start method was created back in the days when people are trying to grow HC Cuba, which is a munch pain in an arse, like beat them again, plant to grow. And they actually are really slow growing on the roots. From memory, they are a floating plant in the wild, so they just tend to grow less roots and float. So dry start is actually for them to establish their roots first to cover the tank, and when you flood it, they will actually stay intact.
Yeah.
But if you're doing like a dry start, you can literally just like a whole piece, dump it on, and let it grow roots.
Look how good it looks.
But if you plan to flood it in a really near filter without letting it to grow roots, you have to plant it deep. If not, it's just going to float up.
No, fair enough.
Cool.
So this one, what was this one called again?
This is Cypress Hellfry, Cypress Hellfairy. So these comes in like multiple bunches, like here. So normally I'll just like gently wiggle and split it into like multiple plants. I mean, you can split it smaller, but it doesn't look as bushy.
Yeah.
But if you don't split it, it's just too. There's too much planters in one plant. It will just compete with each other, and most of the time you have like a few die off, and only one will come back alive. So do split it when you get like tissue culture plants.
Okay.
So for these plants, some people find, or sometimes even me, I do find it harder to plant because it doesn't have much texture or stuff to hold it when it's in the soil. So even you plant it deep, you flood it, it still floats up.
Okay.
So this one, normally I just plant it really deep. So like that, plant it real deep. Sometimes it still floats up because it's just straight. There's no other leaves to hold it or anchor it down soil.
Yep.
But like I said, don't worry, it will come back, it will grow tall and strong. So when you're planting, especially for like these like tall plants, I love to like give it a couple centimeters like space, so when they grow, they actually have space to grow, and they can open their leaves. They don't look as like clamped or like crowded. So actually gives them a bit more space to grow. Social distancing, yeah. So this small tip of like choosing background plants and like mid-ground plants is like, make sure they don't grow super long in the tank. Depends on your tank size. If not, they will just only cover your block out the lights. Yeah, and they will literally just like at the end you will want to pull them out and just like change it, because all your front carpeting plants are not growing properly. All your other plants are just not healthy at all, but there's not enough light.
So that's perfect. We will continue to plant these, and we'll come back in a couple days actually, and we'll sort of have it all set up and finalize the location of all the plants, and we'll share that with you so here we are a couple days later. You've added some extra plants, or are they the same over here? That's the Monte Carlo still?
Yep, it's still Monte Carlo.
And you spread it out all the way across.
Yep.
Alright, so we've gone with 3 different types of plants still. So sort of, is that a bit of a ruling? Sometimes keep it nice and simple, don't overdo it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, because like most hobbyists, when we look at like plants, we're like, oh, cool, I want to try this, I want to try that one. But at the same time, you want to make sure you follow through your theme and your so-called aquascape design. You don't want to like crowd it, or you don't want to like put too much plants in it, so it just takes away the main theme and then adds really funky, weird texture into your tank.
Yeah.
Because you have to imagine it, okay, after a month or two, it's going to look like this. With multiple plants most of the time, you get like a really weird, really funny texture.
Yeah, fair enough. That makes heaps of sense. I think that's what I find amazing. Like a heavily planted aquarium, I think looks really good, but sometimes, yes, it can look messy. And I always do when I watch a lot of aquascapers on YouTube. They'll go, oh, I've let this aquarium go, look at the mess it is. And I look at it and go, but it looks amazing still. And then they'll trim it all up and clean it all out, and then, yes, it will look better. But I know, yes, I feel like simplicity helps when you've got one main focus.
So, a lot of people ask me, how do you fill the tank when there's a scape, or when you've just finished scaping? I'll show you the wrong way of like putting water in first. This is the wrong way. You see, literally.
That's making me cringe.
Yeah. You see all the soil just like literally slowly push away. Lucky enough is like I planted the plant deep enough so it didn't get flushed away. That's why you should plant the plants deep. So, how do you fill the tank? Don't do what I just did. It's just gonna like create a lot of like soil dust, and you're gonna just crumble the soil. Normally, you can have your a plastic bag on top, maybe have like a small cup in there, and just slowly fill it so it overflows and it's not splashing directly on your soil or hardscape, so it don't like won't destroy your hardscape. But normally, because I glue and I make sure my hardscape is actually stable, I can actually just put water onto my hardscape strong as well, so it won't like blast everything away. I will recommend people like glue their hardscape as well, because like it actually, like in the future with you doing maintenance and stuff, you won't accidentally knock your hardscape apart. normally there's a lot of small branches or even soil floating up. But like if you spray it damp first, most of the soil is saturated, they won't float.
Yeah.
So that's why you want to spray it damp. And you see, even I blast it like real hard, there's only like 2 or 3 like stems floating up. Plant it deep, please.
You can replant them, yeah?
Yeah, you can replant them, but why waste the time replanting a lot of stuff that you can do at one time? Especially like when we charge per hour, and we don't waste time. We just make sure we deliver the job, get it done properly first time.
So here's a question. Does it matter that some of the roots are showing?
No, not really. As long it's in the soil, it will slowly grow back. Some it's going to grow like this eventually, it's kind of like growing upwards. What you need to do is just trim that off. So just to trim off all the growth that's not growing as you like, and then you just like make sure it grows strictly on the ground. That's it. Cool. So maybe in the future we'll add some moss, but at the moment we'll leave it like that. Because like moss can be a bit messy. We just want to keep this really, really simple.
Yep.
So again, like what we said, these stuff don't need CO2. They will grow without the CO2. Monte Carlo, they will grow without CO2. It takes slightly longer, but it will still grow. Some of the tissue culture ones might melt back a little bit, but they will come back to life, and they will slowly carpet. It might take a month or 2 longer than the tank that got CO2. Fern that will grow without CO2, you don't have to worry about that. Cypress Healthright, same thing with the Monte Carlo. So they will melt a little bit and they'll come back strong. So this tank, this scape, you can call it a low-tech tank.
It's amazing to think that, you can create something that looks this good. Already, obviously the plants are still going to have some growing to do. But, as you said, it's low-tech. You can do this at home. We've only used 3 plants. We've only used 1 type of wood and 1 type of rock.
A few moments later.
Alright, first things first, equipment. What are we going to put on the tank?
A heater and a filter.
Alright, that's done. Thanks, that part. No. What have we got here? We've got a bit of a selection.
Cool. So, like I said, we're going to try to keep this simple. We've got a fluval hang-on back, or hang-on back filter. We've got an Aqua hang-on back filter. We're going to either use one. We've got an Aqua 50-watt heater, and we've got like an Aquasonic 100-watt heater. Entry-level filter. If you want a simple hang-on back filter, which roughly costs you around $30 something, that's the one to go. A fluval filter, you pretty much don't have to do much explaining. Fluval speaks for itself. The nice brand with all the nice cartridges. It comes with really nice warranty and everything.
So one thing that I see between these two is this one's nice and simple when you're trying to do water changes to store your media and whatnot, whereas this is a bit more low-tech, more basic, yeah?
Yes, correct.
Yep.
And then when it comes to heaters, normally the theory about heaters is like 1 watt per litre, but normally I'll go, if it's like a really budget Chinese brand, they're not as reliable heating wise. I'll normally choose a one that is like slightly stronger, and I'll make sure it keeps my tank always warm. On the other hand, if you don't want to risk it and you want to spend a bit more, you can always go for like European brands like Hydor, Ekrel, Eheim, all those, which will heat the tank perfectly, and then they will keep the temperature as you set.
Perfect. So what do we want to use today for this tank? Because I think we can keep it on the lower end at the moment.
Yep.
As you said, there's more than enough wattage and there's more than enough filtration.
Yeah. So we'll put the fluval and FRL side.
Done.
Cool. So this filter is actually really simple and easy to use. So it comes with like a filter pad and like a fine filter pad. This one pretty much like grows like nitrifying bacteria on it. That pretty much just like works as a water polisher. All you need to do is just like slide it in, and you can use it. If you want to put more filter media in there, like your bacteria rings, you can put that in there as well. So pretty much it's good to go. You can put it in.
Alright, so this might be a weird question, but is there a theory when placing equipment in an aquascape tank? So for example, you don't want to place equipment in a too obvious a spot that it takes away from all the hard work that you've done on the natural scape.
Yes and no. Most of the time, if I'm running a high-tech tank, I'll pay attention to how it brings the CO2 across the whole tank. Does it like reach the bottom level? So if it doesn't, then I have to readjust like the outlet. But since this is going to be a low tank for now, we're just going to make sure it looks mint as possible.
Yeah.
So lucky enough, it's like this is an island style. We have a big, massive structure in front. We can always hide the filter behind that and the heater behind that as well. If not, we can always put it over here. It doesn't still looks clean enough.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So,
and then if we can we fit the heater in behind the wood?
Yes, we can fit the heater behind the wood. And actually, because the flow is going to like hit the bit of the wood and it's going to push the heat around the tank as well. So, just hide the hot heater in. Hiding it well, yeah.
Yeah, it looks great.
Cool. So,
makes me, I'm falling more and more in love with this tank. So yeah, every step we take.
A lot of customers ask me, my hang-on back filter is not working. But why? How so? You have to put water in it so it actually starts to siphon. So if you don't put water in it, most of the filters, especially cheaper ones, they don't have a self-priming or self-sucking water system, so they won't start. So you put water in it, make sure it's filled, and you plug it in. So a lot of people ask me, why is my filter still having some like motor noise or like funny sound? Most of the time because there's like air in that. So all you need to do sometimes is like shake a little bit, make sure it's that there's no air in the filter, and when impeller's like working with air, it's always like funny sound.
Yeah. So while we get this to temperature, while we sort of let the filter kick in, we really need to cycle the tank. So now we're going to talk about some things that I'm not a smarty pants about at all.
Same here. I mean, I'm really bad at chemistry at school.
So what do we got in front of us?
Cool. So it's just like in general, we got like water conditioners. That's water ager that removes like chlorine, chloramine, all that crap in your tap water. So make it safe for like fish, and pretty much won't kill your nitrifying bacteria in your filter.
Yep.
We've got like bacterial products here. Pretty much these are your nitrifying bacteria to like give your tank a kickstart, rather than putting a fish in a tank or putting a dead strip in your tank to give it a start.
Yes.
So these are the bacterial products, and at the end we have like some KH and pH related products to stabilize the pH and adds a buffer to the water, so when there's like livestock in there, or like let's say when there's acid drop, it won't crash.
Okay. Alright, so in layman's terms we have water conditioner or dechlorinator, beneficial bacteria, and pH buffers, or
Actually, it sets both the KH and pH.
okay, but do they help raise it, or do they just help maintain it?
They have maintained it.
Okay,
So,
perfect. So we've just set up a brand new tank. What would you suggest that we put in to speed up the cycle?
cool. Because the water's already chlorinated, so we can like forget about all these.
Yep. But at home, you would obviously, you need to worry about that.
100%. We are going to use this one today. You can use Quick Start. It's a bacteria product, but I mean, because we use that all the time when we're like bringing in fish, it's actually a bit concentrated than the other ones we find. So normally for a tank like this, we'll just pour 5 ml in. Try not to smell it because it stinks a lot. And you can either pour in the tank or you pour in the filter.
That's a good idea. Oh, no.
The lid's are still on. So, well. Yep.
So if you pour it straight into the filter, then that probably, I'm assuming, will help speed up the bacteria getting into that that media that we were talking about in the last episode and starting to establish a colony.
Correct.
All right, so basically, yeah, we've added some beneficial bacteria. How long do you suggest before someone decides to add fish? So you can add beneficial bacteria and then just chuck your fish in, or do you leave it again for a day or a week?
You have to leave it for normally a week or two.
Okay.
I'll still recommend to cycle tank longer. It's better for stability.
Yep.
And you don't want to kill a fish. And it also depends on what type of substrate you're using.
Yes, so we've got the Amazonia.
We're using Amazonia here, and this is just like the normal Amazonia, not the Amazonia 2, not the Amazonia Light. We're just using normal Amazonia here. It does throw out a lot of ammonia in the first couple of weeks, so they do recommend us to do like 100% water change for the first couple of days. So what we do, which is like in the future, we'll do a couple of big water changes. But with the ammonia, anything you put in, it's just going to be dead after a couple of hours.
That's what I was going to say. So for those that are new to the hobby or don't quite understand how ammonia can work, ammonia is good for plants, but not good for fish. So you need to get that balance. This is going to kickstart the plants, and I've always sort of thought maybe a 6 to 8 week period of doing regular water changes gives your plants a good head start on getting established. And then the ammonia, you can eventually get that right down and then start to add your creatures.
Correct.
Now, what would we worry about with these? So would you suggest adding these straight away to your tank, or would you start thinking about the species and then some of the parameters that you need for those species?
If I'm not doing a plant tank, normally I will look at what type of fish and what type of shrimp I want to keep first, and I'll adjust the pH according to that. But because this is a plant tank and we're actually using aquasoil actually buffers pH and buffers GH. So pretty much it only staples like the KH to a certain degree. So any more KH we put in is pretty much going to be buffered out. So Melbourne tap water is pretty soft, so pretty much KH is around 0 to 1, sometimes slightly higher. But normally, the recommended dosage is slightly higher for a plant tank. So normally we just like 1/3, do 1/3 of the recommended dosage for most of the pH or KH related products.
Okay.
So we'll use this one, and how do we open it?
It's got a child lock.
It does. Wow. This is hard. It's not rocket science. Normally I'll just do a pinch or two.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
All right, and that will dissolve over the next half an hour or so.
If you have fish in there, strongly recommend you mix it in a cup first, dissolve it, and then slowly pour it in.
Yeah, because it's not that tasty and they'll try and eat it.
Yep.
I've got to make a quick mention that we are at New Life Studio H2O in Mitcham. That's why we have so many of these different brands and awesome products in front of us that Boaz is able to use and test on this tank. So thank you very much for that, Boaz. It's a really good way to show a lot of new hobbyists and existing hobbyists that, you know, they might have some of these brands that they prefer or they favor, that they can start to think about using those products on their new aquascape. Makes it more real having the water running.
Yeah.
3 weeks later.
Okay, so this is the tank at the moment. It's pretty much completely planted. We've got a bunch of the Monte Carlo and the Cypress halfiri and all the Java ferns and some moss in there. We're going to give it a few weeks. We're going to let everything grow in, and then we're going to come back to you and we'll show you this as a more mature scape. But we finally hit the point where we're finished, and now it's up to the plants to do their part. Thank you everyone that has enjoyed this series so far. Yes, we'll be taking a break from the aquascaping with Boaz until this is complete, but stay tuned next week because we'll be catching up with Alvin and Boaz, and we're going to look at making a terrarium, which I can't wait for. So, as always, if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button, ring the notification bell, don't miss out. And if you get new fish, always acclimate them first. I'm Josh from Aquamate. I'll see you next week.